Hello everyone, good morning. If there is one decision that can change the direction of your entire life, it is this: put God first. Not second, not when it's convenient, not only when things go wrong. Put God first every day and every season and every decision. When you decide to put God first, you are choosing to build your life on a foundation that cannot be shaken. Many people treat God like a backup plan, someone they turn to only when things fall apart. But God was never meant to be your last option. He was meant to be your first priority. A foundation is not something you think about every day, but it determines whether everything above it stands or collapses. In the same way, when God is the foundation of your life, every decision, relationship, and dream rests on something solid and unchanging. Life will bring storms. That is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. Problems will come without warning. People you trust may disappoint you. Plans you carefully made may fall apart. If your foundation is money, success, or people, those storms will eventually expose how weak that foundation really is. Money can disappear overnight. Status can be lost in a moment. People can walk away. But when God is your foundation, storms may shake you, but they will not destroy you. Putting God first means you stop building your life on temporary things and start building it on eternal truth. It means you no longer ask what feels good right now, but instead ask what honors God. That question alone can save you from years of regret. It can protect you from relationships that look good on the outside, but damage your soul on the inside. It can guide you away from shortcuts that promise quick success, but cost you your integrity. A strong foundation is laid quietly and patiently. No one applauds when a foundation is being built because it is underground and unseen. In the same way, putting God first often happens in private moments. When you choose to pray instead of panic. When you choose honesty even when lying would be easier. When you choose faith over fear. These small, unseen choices are what build a life that can stand strong when pressure comes. Many people want the blessings of God without the discipline of building on Him. They want peace without surrender, strength without obedience, and success without faith. But life does not work that way. You cannot build a strong future on a weak spiritual foundation. If God is not first in your private life, He will not be evident in your public life. When God is your foundation, your identity becomes secure. You no longer depend on people's approval to feel valuable. You no longer measure your worth by achievements or failures. You understand that your value comes from God, not from what you do or what you have. That kind of confidence cannot be shaken by criticism or failure because it is rooted in something deeper than opinions. Putting God first also brings clarity. When your foundation is strong, decisions become clearer. You may not always know what the future holds, but you know who holds the future. That knowledge brings peace even in uncertainty. It gives you the courage to move forward when the path is unclear because your trust is not in the path, but in God. If you want a life that lasts, start with the right foundation. Do not wait until life breaks you to realize what truly matters. Build now. Choose God now. Make Him the center, not the side. Because when God is the foundation, everything you build on top of Him, your dreams, your family, your work, your purpose will stand strong no matter what storms come your way. Many people spend their entire lives chasing success, believing that once they achieve enough, happiness will finally arrive. They work harder, aim higher, and sacrifice more, thinking that the next achievement will fill the emptiness they feel inside. But for many, the moment of success is followed not by joy, but by a quiet disappointment. They reach the goal and still feel incomplete. This is what happens when success is pursued without God at the center. Success without God may look impressive from the outside, but on the inside, it often feels hollow. Titles, money, applause, and recognition can never satisfy the deepest needs of the human soul. They may excite you for a moment, but they cannot give you lasting peace. They cannot tell you who you are when everything is stripped away. When God is not first, success becomes a substitute for purpose, and substitutes always fail. Putting God first changes the meaning of success. It shifts success from being about ego to being about impact. Instead of asking, how far can I go? You begin asking, how can I serve? Instead of measuring life by what you gain, you measure it by what you give. This perspective frees you from the pressure of constantly proving yourself. You no longer need to impress the world because you are grounded in God's approval. Many people fear that putting God first will limit their success. They think faith will slow them down or hold them back. In reality, faith gives success direction. Without God, success often leads to pride, greed, and isolation. With God, success leads to humility, gratitude, and responsibility. God does not bless you just to make you comfortable. He blesses you so you can be a blessing to others. There are countless stories of people who gained everything they wanted and lost themselves in the process. They sacrificed their family, their integrity, and their peace to reach the top, only to discover that the top was empty. This is the danger of success without God. It gives you everything except what truly matters. When God is absent, success can actually pull you farther away from your true purpose. When God is first, success no longer controls you. You control it. You can enjoy achievement without being consumed by it. You can lose something without losing yourself. You understand that your worth does not rise and fall with your performance. This brings freedom. It allows you to work hard without becoming obsessed, to dream big without becoming prideful. Putting God first also brings balance. God teaches you when to push forward and when to rest. He reminds you that your health, your family, and your character matter more than any achievement. Success that costs you your soul is not success at all, but success that honors God strengthens not only your future, but your inner life as well. When challenges come, and they will, success without God often collapses, but success built with God stands firm. Faith gives you strength when you fail and humility when you succeed. It keeps you grounded in both victory and defeat. You learn to thank God in good times and trust Him in hard times. True fulfillment comes when success is aligned with God's purpose. It is not about how high you climb, but about who you become along the way. When God is first, success becomes meaningful, peace becomes possible, and life becomes more than a race for recognition. It becomes a journey of purpose, service, and lasting impact. There will be moments in life when the path ahead makes no sense. You pray, you plan, you work hard, and still doors close. Opportunities disappear. The future looks uncertain. In those moments, doubt whispers that God has forgotten you or that you have taken a wrong turn. But putting God first means trusting Him even when the road is unclear and the answers are silent. Faith is not about having all the details. It is about knowing who is leading you. When you put God first, you accept that His vision is greater than your understanding. You see only the present moment, but God sees the full picture. What feels like confusion to you may be alignment in God's plan. What feels like delay may be preparation for something far greater than you imagine. Many people lose faith because they expect God to work according to their timeline. They want immediate results, quick answers, and clear signs, but God often works in seasons, not seconds. Growth takes time. Character takes time. Strength takes time. Trusting God when you don't understand the path means believing that time spent waiting is not time wasted. Closed doors can be painful. They can feel like rejection or failure, but sometimes God closes doors not to punish you, but to protect you. He sees dangers you cannot see and outcomes you cannot predict. A path that looks promising today may lead to destruction tomorrow. By putting God first, you allow Him to redirect your steps, even when it hurts. Unanswered prayers are often the hardest test of faith. You ask, you hope, and you wait. Silence can feel heavier than a clear no, but silence does not mean absence. God is often working behind the scenes in ways you cannot measure. Trusting God in silence builds a deeper faith, one that does not depend on immediate confirmation. When the path is unclear, fear tries to take control. Fear tells you to rush, to panic, to make decisions out of desperation. But faith invites you to pause and trust. Putting God first means choosing faith over fear, even when fear feels logical. It means taking the next right step without seeing the entire staircase. Trusting God also requires humility. It means admitting that you do not know everything and that your plans are not perfect. Many people struggle not because God has failed them, but because they refuse to release control. They try to force outcomes instead of allowing God to lead. But when you surrender control, you make room for divine guidance. The journey of faith often strengthens you more than the destination. Along unclear paths, you develop patience, resilience, and spiritual depth. You learn to depend on God rather than your own strength. These lessons prepare you for responsibilities you are not yet ready to carry. God cares not only about where you are going, but about who you are becoming along the way. Putting God first does not guarantee an easy path, but it guarantees a meaningful one. Even when you don't understand, you can trust that God is faithful. He has led others through uncertainty, and He will lead you too. The same God who opened doors before you is still working, even when you cannot see it. When clarity finally comes, you will often look back and realize that the confusing seasons were necessary. They shaped your faith, refined your character, and aligned your heart with God's purpose. Trusting God when the path is unclear is not blind faith. It is confident faith. It is believing that the God who began the work in you will be faithful to complete it in His perfect time and in His perfect way. One of the hardest things for a person to do is to let go of control. We like to plan, to predict, and to feel secure knowing what comes next. Control gives the illusion of safety. But putting God first requires something that goes against human nature. It requires surrender. Surrendering control is not giving up on life. It is trusting God with life. It is the highest expression of faith. Many people say they trust God, but their actions tell a different story. They pray, but they still worry constantly. They ask for guidance, but they insist on their own way. True surrender means aligning your will with God's will, even when it challenges your comfort. You cannot lead your life and expect God to follow you. Putting God first means allowing Him to lead, even when the direction feels uncomfortable. Surrender does not mean you stop working or dreaming. It means you stop believing that everything depends on you. When you surrender, you acknowledge that God's wisdom is greater than your plans. This realization brings freedom. You no longer carry the weight of trying to control outcomes you were never meant to control. Control often comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty. But fear thrives where faith is weak. When you put God first, you replace fear with trust. You begin to understand that even if things don't go as planned, God is still in control. This understanding brings peace that cannot be explained by circumstances. Many people resist surrender because they believe it will make them weak. In reality, surrender requires great strength. It takes courage to release control and trust God with your future. It takes humility to admit that you don't have all the answers. But humility is the doorway to growth. God cannot guide a heart that refuses to be led. Surrender ails. O teaches patience. When you let go of control, you learn to wait without frustration and to trust without anxiety. You begin to see waiting not as a punishment, but as a process. In waiting, God shapes your character, strengthens your faith, and prepares you for what lies ahead. Surrender allows God to work in you before He works through you. Putting God first through surrender also affects how you handle disappointment. When plans fall apart, you no longer see them as failures, but as redirection. You trust that God is closing certain doors for a reason. This mindset protects you from bitterness and regret. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You begin asking, what is God teaching me through this? Surrender brings alignment. When your will aligns with God's will, life becomes clearer. Decisions may still be difficult, but they are no longer confusing. You develop a sense of peace even in uncertainty because you know you are walking in obedience. Peace becomes your confirmation, not external success. The more you surrender, the more you realize how faithful God is. Looking back, you see moments where your own plans would have led you astray. You recognize that God's guidance saved you from mistakes you didn't even know you were about to make. This builds deeper trust and strengthens your faith. Putting God first by surrendering control transforms your relationship with Him. God is no longer just someone you consult in emergencies. He becomes the leader of your life. When you let go, God steps in. When you trust Him fully, He leads you with wisdom, love, and purpose. Surrender is not the end of your strength. It is the beginning of God's power working through you. Many people are waiting for big miracles, major breakthroughs, and life-changing blessings, but they often overlook the power of small obedience. Putting God first is not only about grand declarations of faith. It is about daily choices that seem ordinary but carry spiritual weight. God often works through small things because small acts of obedience reveal the condition of the heart. Obedience in small things is a test of faith. It shows whether you trust God when there is no applause, no immediate reward, and no recognition. Anyone can obey when the outcome is obvious, but true faith obeys even when the reason is unclear. When you choose honesty over convenience, patience over anger, and integrity over shortcuts, you are putting God first in the quiet moments that shape your character. Many people want big blessings but resist small discipline. They want success, but they avoid consistency. They want favor, but they ignore faithfulness. God uses small obedience to prepare you for greater responsibility. If you cannot be trusted with small things, you will struggle to handle larger ones. Obedience is not about perfection. It is about alignment. Each small step in the right direction moves you closer to God's purpose. Small acts of obedience build spiritual strength. Just like muscles grow through repeated effort, faith grows through repeated obedience. Prayer that feels simple today becomes powerful over time. Faithfulness in daily routines builds endurance for future challenges. When God sees your commitment in the small things, He knows you are ready for more. Obedience also shapes your mindset. When you consistently choose God's way, your thoughts begin to change. You become more aware of God's presence and more sensitive to His guidance. You begin to recognize that obedience is not a burden, but a blessing. It protects you from decisions that could harm your future and aligns you with opportunities meant for you. Many people underestimate how one small decision can change the course of their lives. A single choice to forgive instead of hold a grudge can restore peace. A decision to stay honest can preserve trust. A moment of discipline can open doors that talent alone cannot. God honors obedience not because it earns blessings, but because it demonstrates trust. Putting God first in small things also develops humility. It reminds you that you are not self-sufficient and that you need God's guidance daily. Humility keeps you teachable and open to correction. Without humility, success can become destructive. With humility, success becomes sustainable. Obedience does not always lead to immediate results. Sometimes the reward is delayed, and that delay can test your patience. But delayed obedience still produces lasting fruit. God's timing is intentional. What He builds through faithfulness lasts longer than what is gained through shortcuts. When blessings come through obedience, they come with peace instead of pressure. Small obedience also builds credibility. People may not notice your private faith, but they will notice your character. Consistency creates trust, and trust opens influence. God often uses faithful people as examples, not because they are perfect, but because they are dependable. A God-first life is visible through actions, not just words. When you look back over time, you will see how small obediences led to big outcomes. The habits you formed, the values you protected, and the choices you made quietly shaped your future. Putting God first is not a single moment. It is a daily commitment. Do not underestimate what God can do with a willing heart. Stay faithful in the small things. Obey even when it feels insignificant. Because in God's hands, small obedience becomes the doorway to great blessings, deep peace, and lasting purpose. Every life leaves a mark. The question is not whether you will leave a legacy, but what kind of legacy you will leave behind. A God-first life is not measured by how popular you become or how much you accumulate, but by the impact you have on people and the values you pass on. When God is first, your life speaks long after your voice is gone. Many people spend their lives chasing recognition, believing legacy is about being remembered by the world. But worldly fame is temporary. Names fade, achievements are forgotten, and applause eventually stops. A God-centered legacy is different. It lives in changed hearts, restored relationships, and lives inspired by your example. It is built quietly, faithfully, and intentionally over time. Putting God first shapes your character, and character is the foundation of legacy. Skills may impress people, but character influences them. When people see integrity in how you live, consistency in how you act, and humility in how you lead, they are impacted at a deeper level. A God-first life teaches others what faith looks like in action, not just in words. Legacy is not created in one moment, it is formed in daily decisions. How you treat people when no one is watching matters. How you respond to pressure, disappointment, and success matters. When God is first, your responses reflect faith rather than fear, love rather than pride, and patience rather than anger. These responses shape how others remember you and what they learn from your life. A God-first legacy also extends beyond you. It influences your family, your community, and even people you may never meet. Children learn more from what they observe than from what they are told. When they see faith lived out authentically, it leaves a lasting impression. Friends and colleagues are drawn to consistency and peace that cannot be explained by circumstances alone. God uses your life as a message to others. Many people underestimate the power of faithfulness. They believe legacy requires a large platform or public recognition. In reality, some of the most powerful legacies are built in ordinary places, homes, workplaces, and communities. A faithful parent, an honest worker, a compassionate leader, these lives often leave deeper impact than public figures because their influence is personal and real. Putting God first also teaches future generations what truly matters. In a world that values speed, success, and self-promotion, a God-centered life models patience, purpose, and humility. It shows that faith is not outdated or weak, but strong and relevant. Your choices today can guide someone else's choices tomorrow. A God-first legacy is also eternal. While worldly achievements end with life, spiritual impact continues beyond it. Lives touched by love, encouragement, and faith carry that influence forward. When God is first, your life aligns with something greater than time. You become part of a story that continues long after your chapter ends. There will come a day when titles no longer matter and possessions no longer define you. What will remain is who you were and how you lived. A God-first life leaves behind peace instead of regret, gratitude instead of pride, and hope instead of emptiness. It reminds others that faith is worth living for and worth passing on. Putting God first is not just about personal success, it is about eternal influence. It is about living in a way that points others toward truth, love, and purpose. When your life is centered on God, your legacy becomes more than a memory. It becomes a testimony. And that is the kind of legacy that truly lasts.